My right honourable friend will be aware that the majority of members, colleagues, voting against the government tonight voted to trigger Article 50, which said that we would leave the EU with or without a deal. It was very simple, very clear. Which bit does he think they now don't understand?
Speaker, I think they don't like losing referendums and they never accepted it. But I must come back to the constitutional issue because this motion risks subverting Parliament's proper role in scrutinising and the executive in initiating. And Mr. Speaker, you particularly have a grave responsibility, of which I know you are well aware, to uphold the norms and conventions that underpin our Constitution. But we all have a role to play, and it does considerable damage when some of us choose to subvert rather than reinforce, to hinder rather than to polish our Constitution. I give Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry to say, a stunning arrogance to that view. And it fails to understand where sovereignty comes from. So I do indeed dare to say this, and I say that to the right honourable gentleman, because...
Order. I recognise that there are strongly held views on both sides of the House on all aspects of this matter, but the Leader of the House must be heard. The Leader.
Mr. Speaker, sovereignty in this House comes from the British people, and the idea that we can overrule 17.4 million people is preposterous, and the idea that our rules do not exist to protect the people from arrogant power grabs is mistaken. Those rules are there for the protection of the people. I have given way so many times and to many distinguished members, and it is now time to come on to this motion, which is extraordinary and unprecedented. We are well prepared for leaving with or without a deal, and it is absurd for MPs to attempt to bind the hands of the Prime Minister as he seeks to agree a deal they can support ahead of the European Council. The European Union withdrawal bill makes it harder to deliver the two things the public wants from Brexit. Certainty is one of them, and for it to be delivered. The bill does not do this. It is nothing but legislative legerdemain and a vehicle for extension after extension.
Albeit I'd prefer to have a deal, but with no deal I'd simply say this: we'll be able to trade globally on our own terms. We would no longer be constrained by the deficit which we run with the European Union. We would be able to govern ourselves, and we would also ensure that we retain Northern Ireland as part of our constitutional status. These are matters which transcend the arguments that are being pushed around in this House today. These are the simple questions of principle. These are the questions which we need to address. We must be allowed, as we have for centuries, to govern ourselves until we came into the European community. The competences have been so grossly extended that we do not govern ourselves, and if we stay in this European Union, we will never be able to do so. I am against this motion, and I hope that the House will vote against it.
What I do doubt is the moral legitimacy of a Parliament that called a referendum, promised to honour the result of that referendum, and then 3 years later still has not done so. Now, my right honourable friend, the member for Dorset West, said that we've all made our own different judgments. Some have voted for a deal unenthusiastically. I have to say that I number myself among those who had strong reservations but felt it was the best way to move forward. Some have voted against the deal because they want there to be no deal as the outcome, and some have voted against the deal because they want there to be no Brexit at all. And it's that latter group that I just want to address one or two questions, because this is about the political reputation of Parliament itself. Those who have had a premeditated campaign to try to thwart the Brexit result itself, hiding behind the arguments that it's just the deal that they are opposed to, do themselves, Parliament and politics no credit at all. And that position is worsened if they stood at the general election on a manifesto that explicitly said they would honour the result of the referendum, but they themselves had absolutely no intention of doing so. That, I think, will result in the contempt of voters, and for those particular members who have taken that path, I look forward to their meeting with their voters when we get to the next general election, whenever that comes. I'm concerned
majority and hasn't had one for some time. And that is just one of those things which happens, and it's doing it actually in a fairly reasonable fashion. Although it would be better if we listened politely to each other and stopped trying to beat each other over the head, as I detect is the practice which the government is now adopting. And finally, I will say this. Obviously, I believe that this motion is entirely desirable, entirely in keeping with the House's proper traditions, and is something which should be passed, and the bill that follows it, so that the evils of a no-deal Brexit are avoided, because I believe passionately that evil will follow. But I was struck by my Right Honourable friend, the Leader of the House, who suddenly referred to a man for all seasons, I think because Sir Thomas More is one of his heroes. He will recollect that Sir Thomas said, when told that opposition to the King would mean death, well, these are but devices to frighten children. So I'm afraid if he thinks that the device of withdrawing the whip this evening is going to change my mind or that of my honourable and right honourable friends, he has got another thing coming, because it will be treated with the contempt it deserves.
We voted to leave. People voted to leave, and the reality is not everybody in this House who votes tonight. I know many of them are Remainers who have accepted the result. But the reality is that on my side in particular, there are many of my colleagues who actually want to stop Brexit, and they have seen now using no deal as almost synonymous with stopping Brexit, and that is what is the real truth about what's going on. Now, the Right Honourable Member for Rushcliffe, who has been honest from the beginning, he's not in his seat now, said tonight about tearing the country apart. Well, what on earth is another extension going to do other than tear the country even more apart? What on earth are we going to gain by another extension that we haven't already been able to achieve in the last 2.5 years? What will it actually achieve? And what we are doing tonight, if we vote for this, is sending a signal to all those people who voted to leave, that we know best, that we are being arrogant, that we know best about how the future outside the European Union will work. And I believe that that is going to come home right to hit through, particularly to my party, but to the Conservative Party as well, when we get that general election. And I would say that any Labour Party member who didn't vote for a general election would be looking absolutely ridiculous. Bring an election on and let the people show what they really want.
Doing puts off the day of reckoning even further, but it cannot be avoided forever. There's only one way to avoid no deal and to achieve a deal. That way to achieve that deal, paradoxically, is to be ready and willing to leave without one. Only if we are clear about that does the Prime Minister stand a chance. I accept that that readiness causes disquiet amongst so many of my friends tonight. But to all those friends who, like me, want to see a deal, I would urge them to come with us and give the Prime Minister the unequivocal backing that he needs, because that is the only path to the deal that we all want to see. To vote against the government tonight is not to vote against no deal. To vote against the government tonight is to vote against even the possibility of a deal, against the chance of a deal, even the glimmer of a deal. The motion and the bill it foreshadows achieves nothing more than delay. A delay that in turn achieves nothing more than to sow more division and discord. That division and discord that is doing such damage to our country's social fabric.